this takes the podcast to a whole nother level, man.
Oh, yeah. You know, I saw my friend Larry last
week. Oh my gosh. What was that about your friend Larry? Sounds a lot scary.
Am I the a-hole? Right? Like,
Yep.
So if you're not familiar with this is like a whole subreddit culture that people like put out a story of something that happened to them, something they did, and then they want the general public's opinion on whether they're the a-hole or not, and or whether they're the jerk in the situation. We have read the titles of these two, and I will tell you guys, just based on the titles, these could be really good.
Yeah.
All right, so without further ado, we're going to jump right in and see. Am I the a-hole for calling my mom when my husband refused to listen to me? I mean, just by the title alone, yes, because there's a whole thing called leave and cleave. Like when you get married, you no longer run to your mom or dad. But we're gonna read it. We're gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Man, this is a long one, bro.
Oh, we'll
like
most of them are long.
you picked a long one. All right, so we're gonna read this through, and then we're gonna interject stuff in the middle. We're not just gonna read right through it. 26 female, recently moved into my first home. I am also 4 months pregnant with our first baby. This is already starting off really bad.
Rough start.
Yeah, rough start.
Based
because
on the title.
you should not be calling your mother, if you are mature enough to have a child, you should not be calling your mother at an argument. But let's give her the benefit of the doubt. The pregnancy has been very hard. I have horrible morning sickness. It reached a really bad point where I passed out, hit my head, and my doctor admitted me to the hospital for a week. Okay. Now I'm starting to feel bad for her.
Sympathizing. Yes.
I'm starting to sympathize. Still not sure why we called mom yet. When I got home, my husband allowed his brother's family to move into 2 of our 3 bedrooms. They were evicted. I don't know why. One room was my office, was tossed into our room, papers everywhere. The house was a complete wreck. Trash, dirty clothes, used diapers. I started to cry. I was like a light flipped. My husband was no longer the same. My husband told me it wasn't that bad. My reply was, fine, then you should have the house cleaned up before I wake up. Completely exhausted, I fell asleep for 4 hours. I woke. Let's stop right here. Hold up. Before we get into the whole nap, I'm really starting to side with the wife now because there's never a time where it's okay as a man or a woman or anybody in a relationship to move in family members without speaking with your. I don't care what the situation is. That has to be a conversation that's had with your significant other.
He doesn't seem like one to hold conversations, which might be a problem.
That's definitely a problem. I mean, he moved like a family. What, it was a family of 4? Is that what it said? Well, it doesn't say how big his family was. It just said his brother's family to move into 2 of our 3 bedrooms. Yeah, you got a baby on the way. You cannot be moving people into your house. But anyways, we're taking a nap. The following morning, I was trying my best to work when their kids were. So she works from home too. That was obviously missed in this somewhere. The following morning, I was trying my best to work with their kids when their kids were crying nonstop, banging on the walls, so on. Their mom was in her room for hours ignoring them. Wow. Well, we know why they got evicted. They got evicted for noise because the kids were screaming and banging on the walls.
Kids were screaming. She was left to babysit them.
When my husband came home, he was upset with me over how I didn't make his brother's wife feel welcome in our home by helping with their kids when she was tired, then continued to complain how nothing was done while he was at work all day in the house. Yep, the same one he didn't clean. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to skim through this. You're not the a-hole here.
Yeah,
Your husband is 100% an a-hole. And not only is he an a-hole, he is probably an a-hole you need to get rid of.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like this is a very communicative relationship at all.
No, what are you talking about? Why would you move people into your house while your wife? Of course she's going to call her mother. I'd call my mama to come get me if I was her. I'd be like, come get me out of this. And maybe that's what happened.
Take me away.
I didn't read all the way down. My brother-in-law's kids, my mom and dad are here. Both moms felt like I should have someone here since I'm sick. Both moms have set up a meal plan where they trade off who will bring in dinner. It was my mother-in-law's idea. Thank you all for your advice. I truly appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing okay about this. And no, for starters, I mean, do you agree? What's your take? Is she the a-hole here?
In this scenario, no. At the beginning, sounded kind of like it, just with the
From
general
title, and that's the fun thing about these. A lot of times the title can be misconceiving. So basically, long story short, hubby decides to move in his brother's family, without discussing it with his wife.
Yeah.
Immediately checks off the first, are you an a-hole box for him? Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Because you moved a family into your house with your 4-month pregnant wife, and she's not okay with that. You didn't even have a conversation with her about it. Number 2, you wanted your 4-month pregnant wife to take care of your brother's family, who obviously is not living on the up and up because they got evicted from their house. Now, not judging anybody, I know things happen, but I'm telling you right now, if you end up in someone's home because you were evicted, you best be like, if they are kind enough to put a roof over your head, it's time to like go all out. You need to be the like biggest saint you've ever been in your entire life for the time that you're in their home.
Yeah, I mean, especially in this scenario, especially because, the wife basically had to babysit the kids, took time away from her work.
Yeah, and that was another thing. She was working from home. So, no, ma'am, 26 female, you are not the a-hole. However, you need a husband upgrade. I'm sorry, but you need a husband.
Might be.
Yeah, your husband really might be an a-hole. I'm telling you that right now. All right, moving on to number 2. How do I find that? Let's see. Chase is operating here. Oh, okay. Just on again, we're basing this in 2 parts. First part is after the title. Second part is after we read the story. Am I the a-hole? I didn't attend my son's wedding. I instead spent the evening with his ex-wife.
It's a red flag.
That's initially, yes, you were an a-hole. If this is written by the father of the son, I'm not sure what's going to transpire in this.
Father...
Yeah, this is the father of the son that wrote this, and he did not attend his son's wedding because he spent the evening with his ex-wife. So, initial thoughts.
I'm gonna be honest. The last one surprised me.
No, we can't base it off the last one. We got to base it strictly off the title.
I'm using it as an example. Okay, based strictly off the title. I highly doubt this one's gonna take a turn like the last one. I can't, in my mind, figure out how you're gonna twist skipping your son's wedding.
That's true.
To be with his ex-wife that he presumably divorced.
I mean, that's how she became an ex-wife.
Yeah.
So, she may have left him.
That's why I said presumably.
All right, let's read it here and see. Quick backstory. After graduating high school, my son moved 3 states away for college. At 19, he married a girl he met. I tried convincing him to wait because I personally felt like he was too immature. They both dropped out and moved back here to his hometown. At 20, they had their first child, a beautiful little girl 16 months later. My daughter-in-law gave birth to their second child, a little boy. Okay, so we've got kids involved.
Yes.
So already, but still, like, why are the kids not? Well, maybe the kids are at the wedding, but I mean, the kids should be at the next wedding unless maybe the son did not allow kids at the new wedding, but I mean, his own kids. Like, come on.
Yeah.
All right, let's read a little farther here. After the first baby, my wife and I noticed our daughter-in-law wasn't happy. We both thought it was postpartum depression related. Just after the second arrived, my son and his wife separated. She would bring the kids over for a visit. It was then she began unloading on us. I know there's 2 sides to every story, but considering I know my son, I believed her. I sat my son down numerous times to speak with him regarding his marriage. He refused to take responsibility, blamed her for everything, even when I directly pointed out where he was the sole problem. Okay, well, number 1, like, before we go farther, I totally disagree with this. There should never be a time in a marriage where you run to each other's parents to tattle or to tell. These needs to be conversations you have with one another. Like, if you're unhappy, if you can't sit down and have a conversation with your husband or your spouse, leave. It doesn't get any simpler than that. You've got to be able to sit down and have a conversation. This is not something where you should have to run to mom or dad. They got into counseling. For a year, things were okay on the surface. Our daughter-in-law filed for divorce. My son, 3 days later, was on Facebook announcing his new girlfriend. A month later, they were engaged. Oh, okay.
It's a quick turnaround.
So that is definitely a quick turnaround. I'm starting to understand maybe. My son had forced his then wife to become a permanent. It says stay-at-home mom at the birth of their first child. She, of course, had no other family or friends here. She knew no one aside from us. She had nowhere to go with 2 small children. Unbeknownst to our son, my wife and I helped her financially and got her an apartment. I'm not upset about that part because here's the thing. Those are your grandbabies.
Yeah.
So I get that. Like just because mom and dad doesn't get along, I mean, I don't know that you should do it behind their back. I mean, I think the adult thing to do there is just be like, hey, those are our grandchildren. She might not be married to you anymore, but we're going to help make sure they're stable and they have a roof over their head. That's being a grown up and an adult. I think that's a conversation that just has to be had. Before the divorce was even finalized, we received a wedding invitation. Oh my! So the divorce is not even final.
The divorce was finalized.
We received a wedding invitation. I made it clear to my son I would not be attending, and they would not have my blessing. We'll talk about that. His mother told him she would see to it that I would attend. I stayed consistent in my decision. I also asked him not to bring his fiance around our house out of respect for the mother of his children. Now we're starting to get dicey. Now we're starting to be dad is acting childish at this point. The wedding happened on February 11th, the night before my wife gave me the final push. I did not attend. Our daughter also did not attend for the same reasons. My wife picked up our grandkids, got them dressed, and attended the wedding. My daughter and I decided to spend the evening with his ex. I couldn't imagine her sitting alone while her kids attended their father's wedding. Man, like she was taken aback that I didn't end up attending his wedding. We took her out to distract her mind. I just wanted to know she'll always be considered family to us. My daughter also made a joke they can drop the in-law status and just be sisters now. She was very tearfully grateful. I realized just how badly she needed our support, and specifically on that night. The next morning, my son called to tell me how much of a horrible father I am for not attending his wedding. A few days later, he caught wind that I spent the wedding evening with his ex. He said that was the ultimate form of betrayal, and further, myself and his sister would have to earn a relationship with him on his terms only. Man, that's a tough one because you're okay. Let's start with the obvious. Your son's a jerk. He probably cheated on his wife. And he's probably, I don't want to say he's a bad dad because it didn't really give any kind of details on that. However, he is still your son.
Yes.
That he's your son. You're talking about now it'd be one thing if he was making you choose between your ex-daughter-in-law because she is your ex-daughter-in-law and she might still be family because she did birth your grandchildren. I totally get that. However, it's one night. Like you have got to be grown up enough to go suffer through one night for your son, because just because you feel some kind of way about him and his relationship that doesn't mean that he's in the wrong because he fell in love with somebody different. I mean, that happens. It sucks. And I'm not saying he's a good person. He probably is definitely a terrible person. I mean, obviously, if he's sending out wedding invitations before his other wedding or divorce was even finalized.
Yeah, before they were even legally divorced.
They were separated, but legally divorced. But still, that's your kid. I mean, at the end of the day, that's your son. So that's a tough one. What's your take? Is he the a-hole? Do you have any input about like the whole situation before we decide if he's the a-hole or not?
In this situation, it feels like everybody involved isn't the greatest person.
Except maybe the daughter-in-law.
Except that maybe the daughter-in-law. She's the only person who was presented as not doing anything wrong. But like the dad and the son in that situation both sounded unreasonable.
Yeah, I agree.
Different ways.
I agree. I mean, I think you have to go to that wedding. Like I don't see, because here's the thing. You can never get that back. Like that's if this might be like his soulmate and they end up spending the rest of their life together. My question is, now what happens if they have kids and they stay married? Are you going to let that affect your relationship with your grandchildren? Because you've obviously made it a point to not let it affect your relationship with your grandchildren with your ex-daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
So how are you going to handle that if they have kids? Because now you've put yourself in another situation. So, man. All right, final determination. Is the dad an a-hole?
It's very hard. It doesn't seem black and white in this situation.
We got to make it black and white. There's no gray area. Do we call him an a-hole or not?
I'm trying to think both sides. Okay, both sides of this, right? What do you think?
Dad, you are an a-hole. 100%.
Right.
You are the a-hole. Here's the
I
bottom.
feel like you're more qualified in this.
Here's
realm.
the bottom line when it boils down to something like this. And we're joking and we're kind of making light of the situation, but at the end of the day, grandkids are everything. I get that. You need to have a good relationship with your grandkids' parent, even if they are no longer with your child. With that being said, I don't think taking one day out of a lifetime and attending your son's wedding, even if you don't agree with it, in my opinion, I still think you've got to be there. And I think the way you handled it, but you could have easily attend, because here's the thing, Dad probably didn't want the kids at the reception anyways. So why not go attend the ceremony, be there for the first formal events of the night or whatever. You don't even have to have blessing. I've been to plenty of weddings where the parents did not give their blessing for the wedding, but they were there. Go take your grandbabies and then go visit your ex-daughter-in-law. Take them home, whatever you got to do. But I think it sets a bad example for the kids. I don't know. It doesn't really say how old the kids are at this point. I'm assuming they're not very old at all because it didn't seem like that marriage lasted long whatsoever. But I think, Dad, yes, you are the a-hole. I do. I mean, I'm sorry, but I think in that scenario, I think that that's the a-hole.
Yeah, and it's a very complicated situation with everything all around.
Yeah, I mean, and that was a tough one. And that's what's so cool about these. It makes you think, and it like gives you these perspectives. So you guys leave a comment down below and let us know. I don't even think we need your comment on the first one. I mean, the wife was not the a-hole in the situation. 100%. The husband was being an a-hole. But y'all leave a comment. That second one was a little tricky. So y'all leave a comment down below and let us know if you thought the dad of the son was an a-hole or not. What do you got there before we wrap it up, man?
I was just going to say, have you ever, just that because it was mentioned in that story, have you ever known anybody that got married a month after they met?
Yeah, actually I have. Not personally, but I know of people. But I mean, yeah, there are some people that are, love at first sight. I mean, your mom and I moved in together 2 months after we met.
True. Moving in's different than
It is very, very different.
not.
Very different. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, for sure. I've seen I'm trying to think of a wedding we've worked. That's a great question.
I know you work weddings.
I'm trying to think of a wedding we've worked where it was like a quick turnaround. I feel like most of the time if they hire people, it's not. I feel like if it's that quick, they just like run to the courthouse and
yeah.
But for sure, it's happened. I mean, heck, people in Vegas get married the day they meet.
The day they meet, yeah.
Because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas unless you sign a legally binding contract to another person.
And then it stays in your life.
Then that stays in your life. That's not staying in Vegas.
It's not staying. And again, with these stories, it's also good to note that the person writing it is always going to be biased in their favor.
Right.
They'll probably leave out details that make them seem bad.
That is a very, very valid point.
If they're writing it, they're probably...
This is true. So if you can't write a good am I the a-hole without making yourself legitimately look like the a-hole, you probably definitely were the a-hole. Like in that situation, you didn't even do a good enough job writing that to make yourself not look like the a-hole. And you wrote it.
The goal is to make yourself look as good as possible.
Yeah, and if that was the best you could come up with, you, sir, are the a-hole.
Hello. This takes the podcast to a whole nother level, man.
Oh, yeah. I saw my friend Larry last
week. Oh my gosh. What was that about your friend Larry? Sounds a lot scarier now.
Oh, this one's a robot.
It was the smelly robot.
Let's see.
Hello. Oh, wow.
So, okay. So, this week's story is all the way from... So, let's talk about,